Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Welcome to Breeders Cup Focus. In this edition, we're going to take a peek at the top early contenders for the Breeders Cup Distaff. Let's take a look at the top 10 as ranked by Daily Racing Form's Brad Free. Monomoy Girl is one of the great stories of this year's Breeders' Cup. It's the greatest comeback since Lazarus, perhaps. Monomoy Girl was a champion earlier in her career. She went away for a long time with various physical ailments. There was serious questions as to whether we would even see her on the racetrack, let alone back in big form. Hey, Mike, she's the morning line favorite right now for the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and deservedly so. She's been tremendous this year.
Yeah, she really has. We've seen her 3 times now. She's picked up a grade 2 win. She's picked up a grade 1 win. She earned a career best 104 buyer 2 starts back in the Ruffian. I mean, it just feels like as for a filly or a mare now who was away for as long as she was, she really didn't miss a beat.
And she has great tactical speed. She likes to get into the flow of the race, but she doesn't need the lead to do so. Let's watch her Ruffian 2 starts back. Just a smooth performance, taking down Vexatious, who would return to defeat Midnight Bizu, who unfortunately is retired and will not compete in the Breeders' Cup this year. But Vexatious is trying very hard. Monomoy Girl doesn't let her get too close. Monomoy Girl, again, very, very good, and just the horse to beat in the distaff.
Yeah, just the horse to beat. That's 100% right. She came out of this Ruffian too, Dan, and backed that race up very well, I thought, in the La Troyenne at Churchill Downs. Back out around 2 turns for the first time this year. She looked really good winning that race, and she is definitely the horse to beat.
Now, a horse that has run slightly faster on the buyer scale than Monomoy Girl is the 3-year-old filly Swiss Skydiver, who's also being considered for the Breeders' Cup Classic. She'll be pre-entered in both. But what can you say about Swiss Skydiver? I love fillies like this, throwbacks. They show up every time. They don't duck any competition. They take on the boys. They beat the boys. Let's watch the Preakness. Swiss Skydiver down on the inside. What a great ride here by Robbie Alvarado. To kind of split horses, take the race to Improbable, take the inside away from Improbable, and gamely beat back Improbable's furious challenge in the stretch.
Yeah, it was a great ride. But, you know, let's give Swiss Skydiver all the credit, Dan. I mean, she was in a prolonged battle with a really good colt there in the Preakness, and she did not let him get back on top in that race. That was a really good performance. She's just really good. I mean, as you said, a throwback, you know, running her all over the place, all different tracks, shipping her around the country, every big race, and she shows up every time. I know that they're looking at the Classic, Dan. They should run her in this race. She has a real chance to win.
And that would be a great battle of the generations, the older Monomoy Girl, the 3-year-old filly Swiss Skydiver. As of right now, they seem head and shoulders above the rest of this division. Let's take a look at an up-and-comer trained by Todd Pletcher named Valiance, who won the Spinster Stakes, perhaps very importantly, at Keeneland as her final prep for the Breeders' Cup. Valiance is the gray horse on the outside, and she's been mostly campaigning on turf in her career. Well, she obviously likes dirt. She's going to strike the front right now, and you're going to see the rock-solid Ollie's Candy in the purple and gold on the outside get up for second. These mares are in a long, prolonged drive. They all ran well. And again, they beat a nice one in here in Kentucky Oaks winner She Dares the Devil, who beat Swiss Skydiver in the Kentucky Oaks. I just wonder if they class up to Monomoy Girl, Swiss Skydiver. I wonder if they have it what it takes to beat both of them.
Yeah, I wonder the same. You know, and we'll obviously see what happens. This is one of the great things about the Breeders' Cup, though, Dan, is that you can get, you know, horses as talented as these two at prices sometimes in these races. I can't say I love either one of them. Ollie's Candy, you know, is certainly very nice, and she shows up every time. I'm just, you know, not her biggest fan, but she's very good. Valiance is a little bit more of, you know, that wild card feel. I mean, she was a turf horse to start. Now she's won 2 races in a row on dirt with the 2, you know, fastest races of her life. So maybe she's just that lightly raced horse headed the right way.
If Swiss Skydiver runs in the distaff, she wouldn't be the only 3-year-old filly in the field. Harvest Moon is 8-1 on Brad Free's morning line, and she's been pretty impressive in her career. She still has a lot of upside potential. She's yet to really take on the quality of competition of a Monomoy Girl or a Swiss Skydiver, but she handled older fillies very nicely last time out in the Zenyatta. I wouldn't completely count her out.
I wouldn't either. I actually like all of her races. And she'll come in here undefeated on the main track, which is, no small thing. And she ran, really well last time. That wasn't as good a field as this one, but it was another step in the right direction. It just feels like she has even more room to improve.
Horologist is 10-1 on Brad's line, and she proved she wasn't a Monmouth wonder last time out. A very nice victory for Horologist, another horse with tactical speed. Again, she's got to beat several good ones if she's going to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff, but you can't ask her to come into this race in any better form.
I agree with that. It's sort of tempting to look at her last race and say, oh, well, Dunbar Road was off of a layoff there, and it felt like, maybe she was just using that race to get to the next spot. But I don't think that would be giving Horologist enough credit. She ran really well in there. Now, her last two dirt wins, a 100 and a 102 Beyer speed figure, it puts her right there in this race.
Let's talk a little bit about Vexatious. We saw her run second to Monomoy Girl in the Roughie, and she came back. She won the big race at Saratoga, beating Midnight Bijou. She's perhaps underperformed since then. We know she has it in her. You give her a big pace, she can come with a good late run. Was the race against Monomoy Girl, though, kind of just the sticking point there where you saw she took her best shot and she wasn't good enough?
Maybe it was. It was certainly a step in the wrong direction for her. She just didn't really, I just sort of look at that race, Dan, and say it's kind of too bad for me to believe it, because her races 2 and 3 back, they're both really good. And I know Monomoy Girl's handled her twice in her last 3 starts, but it just feels like this mare, has found herself this year. I would be willing to give her a chance to rebound.
Let's talk a little bit about Dunbar Road, who is a very good 3-year-old filly. There were high hopes for her this year. She began her season with a bang, and unfortunately, she missed a lot of time over the summer. And Chad's had a whale of a time getting her back to form, and perhaps she wasn't really at the top of her game when she was beaten by Horologist last time out. I think with that race under her girth and stretching out in distance around 2 turns, maybe that's going to help Dunbar Road in a race with pace at a price.
That's a very good point. It certainly could work to her advantage. And, you certainly want to look at the Beldame, I think, and just sort of feel like maybe she needed that race. The real problem that she has right now is there's no fast race on her card. So even though she came back and won her first 2 starts this year, they weren't fast races. They were not good fields. They were both races that she was supposed to win, and she did. Now she has to run faster.
Monomoy Girl, the 2-1 preliminary morning line favorite on DRF Bradfree's line. Swiss Skydiver, the Preakness heroine. We'll see where she runs. If she runs here, she can give Monomoy Girl a really good run for her money. Maybe she'll run in the Classic. And then you've got some horses lurking in the weeds. Very talented horses at nice prices. The Harvest Moons, the Valiances, maybe even a Point of Honor, a 1-run closer that would appreciate a race with pace. It's going to be a fun edition of the Distaff, but the story is Monomoy Girl.